The basement, where nerdiness thrives, and grown men rant about toys.
What up, basement dwellers?
Spooky basement dwellers, what up?
Yeah, we're here with a special Halloween episode.
We're here with Dr. Wolfenstein, if you will, to do a special Graveyard Smash episode where we begin a long talked about concept we've wanted to do, the chronicling of Rob Zombie's ever-growing insanity.
Yeah. Damn,
in the film screen in particular.
Huh?
On the film screen in particular, because I know you've talked about his music in the past, and in that you guys went over a couple of, I guess, all the movies that were out at the time?
Yeah, at the time, this was back when Speaker Brains was Audio Theory Radio. This was about 10 years ago almost.
Wow.
And at the time, his most recent film was Lords of Salem. And that was back when we just tried to talk about all the movies in one episode. It might have only been about 2 hours. It was kind of like how Josh Hadley's Radiodrome was. Whenever they did a retrospective, they just glossed through the movies in about an hour or so.
Yeah, it was more of just like a casual conversation where, not point by point like we do.
Yeah.
So you condense it into like one episode.
And it wasn't until I started checking out Skeleton Crew and all the Horrorphilia guys when I was like, you know what? We could just do an episode for each film and go deeper.
Yeah, it works out a little better as a long-form thing because each individual film, especially in horror, you know, it has a lot of talking moments, especially Rob Zombie. Every little bit of dialogue has some little bit of his personality in it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's so significant about us doing it now, the retrospective, because on an earlier episode of Fresh from the Basement, years back, I was probably just starting off college, fresh off of, like, I don't know, maybe it was like, because I was watching a lot of Channel Awesome at the time or whatever, and they weren't big on the Rob Zombie movies, a couple of those reviewers, but I was not big on his movies for a really, really long time. I liked Devil's Rejects, but I hadn't yet gotten there for the rest of his movies. I really wasn't a big fan of his Halloweens, which the first Halloween I've actually come around on a little bit. As I got older and as I went through film school and I kind of learned what I liked and my sensibilities kind of changed, House of a Thousand Corpses in particular really took on a whole new life for me. And it's come to be a movie that I really enjoy on its own merits. It's a movie that's got balls, and we'll see when we look at some of the fan comments. My buddy Mike Benbow made a comment that it's like he does what he wants, Rob Zombie, and at the end of the day, like, that's what I commend the most. You know what I mean? I can never take that from Rob Zombie. He's a filmmaker who he does what he thinks is cool, and it's anything goes.
Yeah, definitely. I've been a fan of Rob Zombie since I was about roughly 10 years old. MTV used to play White Zombie music videos all the time. I think the song that really introduced us was his cover of I'm Your Boogeyman for the Crow City of Angels soundtrack. They used to play that music video a lot. And then we had seen Beavis and Butthead Do America, and I'll never forget when that sequence came on that was animated by Rob Zombie.
Right.
I remember Zach looking at our dad and being like, "Was that White Zombie?" And fucking like, damn, man. And then like it kind of went away for a while. Then boom, Rob Zombie goes solo, and Dragula came out, and I was like, "Oh shit, is this a new White Zombie song?" And then at the end it said Rob Zombie. I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" I might have been about 12 at this point. And then I remember right before this movie was supposed to come out, there was a teaser at the beginning of some videotape we had rented. I can't remember what it was. And my dad was like, "Oh shit, he's making a movie?" We were like, "What the fuck?" And then nothing until the movie finally came out 20 years ago this year. But this movie, I fucking loved it and still love it from the moment I damn first saw it, because at the time, let me see, I might have been 17 when this movie came out. The mainstream horror scene was pretty damn sterile at this point in time, and everything looked the same. Everything, it was all just kind of tame. And
it was all kind of riding the success of Scream, where it was almost like teen drama horror, a little bit more of the not psychedelical, but that's Rob Zombie for you. A little bit more of the psychological aspect rather than focused on the gore or the kills. It was a different flavor of horror going around. I Know What You Did Last Summer, kind of these stalker, teenage, definitely still having their roots in the 80s slasher age, but kind of Dawson's creaking it up. Not really doing an exploitation thing with it, which is one of Rob Zombie's big...
which, when that whole polished scene of horror movies was first coming out, it was cool, because I love the Scream franchise. I loved the first I Know What You Did Last Summer. You know, for the first couple years it was good, but then it started getting lame, like Valentine, motherfucking, I mean, by 2000 it had already run its course, except for maybe Final Destination. That stayed pretty fun, you know, with the gore and the kills, but for the most part there is so much just unmemorable shit.
Yeah, until Saw came around and kind of popularized Saw and Hostel. It's easy to just be like torture porn, but Mike Benbow, again in the comments, goes into it. He wrote a really long one where the sensibilities kind of changed with gore once the success of those. Like by 2004 on, you start to see like grit start to return to horror movies, whereas in the 90s, like even slasher franchises that were trying to hang on, like the Halloween franchise, they kind of molded themselves into Scream with like H2O, and I don't know what they were going for with Resurrection, but we're at this odd time in horror where I'd like to think, this is an odd theory I have in my head, that mixing this pristine kind of Dawson's Creeky horror mixed with this Rob Zombie gritty exploitation, I think like these two eras of horror played like a fundamental role in the creation of American Horror Story, because you kind of see like the best of both throughout that series in terms of like looks and style and direction. Am I alone in feeling that way? Like rewatching House of a Thousand Corpses today, I'm like, a lot of the shots in this, especially when you get to the climax, this is very like American Horror Story opening credits, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, with the weird shit being thrown at the screen. And when this came out, everyone I knew hated it. Except for like me, Zach, and Josh. And when we were doing our first retro about 10 years ago, Zach had mentioned, and I still agree with this today, Zach said that Rob Zombie is like the Quentin Tarantino of horror. and
He is.
and I definitely agree with it. Like, and I know a lot of people, the thing is it is just the cool thing to hate Rob Zombie movies, to hate the fact that he uses the same actors, to hate the fact that he puts his wife in them all. But nobody, to me, has anything that convinces me otherwise that these movies are bad, because I like them all.
Yeah, they tend to poke at the tropes, but like every director has tropes. But I want to go back to what Zach said because I was thinking that, and I feel like a lot of people are reluctant to say that, but he is really in that camp with a Tarantino and a Robert Rodriguez. Maybe not in quality, but in terms of like his sensibilities, what he's into, the kind of look and genres that he's trying to play off of. That's even why they had him do a trailer for Grindhouse in the first place. I mean,
and apparently he filmed like 40 something minutes of footage for that like 2-minute trailer, and it's always been on the back burner for him to make that movie. So I'm hoping that since Eli Roth is actually making Thanksgiving, which is based on his fake Grindhouse trailer, I'm hoping Rob Zombie will do Werewolf Women of the SS.
It would be great to see because there is an extended version of the trailer, but still, that's not 40 minutes. But you still have like a good short film there. And then knowing Rob, another thing I noticed when rewatching this movie is he lets no footage go to waste. Like he finds a place for everything.
Yeah, he lets no footage go to waste. And I think, especially in this movie, his scene dressing, his set dressing is phenomenal. Just the amount of shit to look at, it feels like you're walking through a really good haunted house attraction where there's just so much shit to look at that you just want to slow it the fuck down and just appreciate all the weird shit just sitting around.
It's like the murder house that they open on. Like they start you off on the fake one, but then they're like, guess what? Now here's the real one. And I believe that's how this movie actually started, was as like House of a Thousand Corpses was a Universal attraction from Rob Zombie, I believe, for the theme park.
Yeah, he got the idea for the movie by doing a what do you call it? An attraction for Universal Studios one Halloween, and
it's their version of like the Halloween Horror Nights or whatever they call it at Six Flags.
And, but yeah, so we asked everybody, did you get any comments on your post? I saw one comment and I have another comment.
Yeah, so I've actually been referring to that comment already. Mike Bembo, my buddy, actually wrote like quite a bit about this movie, and I'm mostly in agreement with him, but since it's pretty long, why don't we let you do the honors and start us off?
Alright, so I can't remember where this comment came from, but a Will Mickey Murr says, I am going to be controversial and say I like Rob Zombie films. At least he does it his way, and sometimes it works better than others. Sid Haig and Bill Moseley were so good in Corpses, I think even better than they were in Rejects. That gets much more respect. It's not in my top 10 of all time, but scrapes into my top 20. And then my other comment, a friend of ours, Don Schwartz, we all call him Thirsty. He says, no comment and laughing emoji. And then he shares a picture of him when he went as Captain Spaulding for, I'm guessing, Halloween. It's
right.
Yeah, and his makeup is so good in that picture. Like he's got it down.
It looks great. And for the first comment, that's kind of like a sad thing that, like, you know what I mean? It shouldn't be a controversial thing. Like, hey, I like the movie.
I know.
And in some ways, I did kind of contribute to that when I, was on my little hate train.
Like, it is such a cool thing to just hate Rob Zombie movies. I will never understand it. And like you mentioned, a lot of the Channel Awesome people, it was such a cool thing for them, especially like Brad Jones and all of them. But it wasn't until about almost 10 years ago when Count Jacula got put on Channel Awesome, and he had his House of a Thousand Corpses review, and he was praising the shit out of it. Which I was like, right on, dude. Now you got me as a fan now, just because you like the fucking movie as much as I do, and you're not just trashing it.
And to preface it, I was always a fan of his music. In either like late middle school, early high school, I had listened to that Past, Present, and Future Best of, and then I was off to the races from there. So I don't know what the disconnect was. Maybe I was just like trying to fit along with the hype. Like I was just still at that time where you're still digesting movies, figuring out what your thing is. You know what I mean? And over time, I think also just the way new movies are and how modern movies get released and stuff like that. Looking back on something like A House of a Thousand Corpses, it's something that's got vision. It's something that, you know, feels like an auteur thing that whether you like it, don't like it, or indifferent, I think that's something to really be cherished and enjoyed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That this guy he had an idea that only really he can come up with. It's inspired definitely by other horror movies. The imagery we've seen before, but not like this. And he manages to do tricks that don't work in other movies. Like the split screen effects actually really work in this movie.
Yeah.
Where Hulk came out that same year. And I defend that Hulk movie, but the split screen definitely I don't defend. That's one of the most wonky things about that movie is the comic book panels.
That movie, the movie tried to be like a comic book panel, which I thought was really cool. I thought it was really cool because it was different. I had never seen it in a comic book movie up to that point, but yeah, it's one of the things where, like with that Hulk movie, it's not a good movie, but there are things about it that makes it a cool movie.
Right. That's worth a podcast almost in and of itself in the future. That's a good, 3-hour conversation.
I mean,
there.
plus, who thought Ang Lee? Who gave Ang Lee, you know, a motherfucking a real artistic ass, you know, director, and they give him a comic book movie, you know, so.
And not just a comic book movie, like they give him a Hulk movie of all people.
Yeah.
But on my end, I got Mike Benbow, my buddy from college. He commented, always loved it. I think part of the thing that killed it for casual audiences at the time were not only the excessive gore, not widely popularized for contemporary audiences until Saw and Hostel, but also those cutaway, super psychedelic scenes with Sherry Moon and some killing scenes which were reminiscent to me of the 60s and 70s low-budget horror. The regular audience at the time, in my opinion, was still kind of falling back on the psychological horror left behind from Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Also, as much as I loved it, the whole Dr. Satan mutant experiments angle did seem very out of place and made it seem like a different movie. I loved it, but the average moviegoer was probably like, what the fuck, lol. And that's my take. I'll leave it on that note. The only movie I can think of off the top of my head that successfully pulled off the let's add a supernatural element halfway through was From Dusk Till Dawn. And then after that, he did put one more point. He wrote one last point to chew your ear off. I feel like Devil's Rejects was way more popular and accepted because it had a very tight story, lost the supernatural subplot, and just felt like that movie knew what it was. A movie about a family of killers. So that's Mike. He basically gave us a mini review.
Yeah.
And I agree with most of his points, pretty much. As we go along, I'll kind of mention where I differ. But for the most part, already in the intro of this podcast, I've already kind of been quoting him, because there is a lot of stuff that he nails right off the bat, that I think it was a modern audience, not modern audience, it was what audiences were expecting at the time versus this, where horror was at the time. And I kind of see what he means by it feels like a different movie near the end, but again, that's where I'll differ.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with pretty much all of it, and I get the stuff that I don't necessarily agree with, I get, but I totally understand, because Devil's Rejects was definitely popular because it knew what it was, it toned down the silliness, and at the same time, this movie is more of an experiment, whereas Devil's Rejects, like he said, definitely knows what it wanted to be. But what annoys me is the fact that Devil's Rejects became the one that all the asshole and what am I looking for? The more pretentious people to be like, this is his only good movie. This is his only good movie.
Great. That
And
was
I'm
great.
like,
I like Devil's Rejects, and to this day, I will say, Devil's Rejects is the masterpiece. Like, I just love that fucking movie. I just think every part of it is perfect. But I respect people who say that they love House of a Thousand Corpses more because, number one, it's a take that's becoming more and more. You hear it more often.
yeah,
now.
you are seeing a lot more people throw Rob Zombie some respect, and you're seeing a lot more people, especially me, say they like Corpses better than Rejects. Like I've always liked House of a Thousand Corpses more than Devil's Rejects, but I still love the shit out of Devil's Rejects. Like,
well, I think it taps into what you were saying, where it's people like an experiment. It kind of feels like you're watching something be made. You know what I mean? You kind of don't know what's going to happen next.
mm-hmm.
Rob Zombie almost has like a Frank Miller-ish quality about his dialogue, where characters will repeat certain phrases or just like have these odd catchphrases that everybody in the room knows for some reason, even though it's such an odd thing to say. Like there's these little quirks and things that definitely carry over into Rejects, but yeah, I like that tighter thing. I like that tightness about Devil's Rejects.
And a lot of the changes in Devil's Rejects make sense as well. Because if you watch House of a Thousand Corpses, your main characters, Otis, Baby, and Captain Spaulding, and the rest of the family are fucking wacky. They are out of their mind, fucking wacky, playing it up, hamming it up. But when you get to Devil's Rejects, they're more reserved. They are more... all that wackiness is gone. And
it's kind of like the Empire Strikes Back of the trilogy, where it's like, this is the this whole thing is dark and macabre, but this is the dark chapter.
yeah, and it makes sense because if you think about it, they're acting this way in Corpses because they're comfortable. They're in their comfort zone. They're used to just having people come to their house and just play with them.
They're in
Whereas,
control.
yeah, whereas in Rejects, they're kicked out of their home. Now they are out in the wild. They have to think on their feet, so they don't have time to act all crazy and silly and shit and just play with people. You get a little bit of it when they get to the hotel with Banjo and Sullivan, but
right, they can't help themselves. Like they're still crazy, so there still has to be like a bit of that theatrical.
yeah, so they play it up a little bit there, but for the most of the movie, they're more reserved. They're more thinking on their feet. So it makes sense that these characters in this new environment would not be acting all wild and wacky like they do in the first movie.
They also specify in the second one that, like, oh, this takes place in the 70s, this series. Whereas in the first one, it's in House of a Thousand Corpses. It's just kind of an indistinct...
Well, at the beginning of the movie, it says October 30th, 1977. So at the beginning of the movie, it already tells you it's in the 70s.
Oh, right. They do have the little fucking... Jesus, how did I forget that? They have, almost like in Halloween, it tells you as the days go by. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's almost a blink. The thing is it's a blink and you'll miss it because there's so much shit happening on screen. You see words, you're not paying attention.
Right, you're like, I have to fucking read. Like, words that don't say Showtime, you know what I mean?
But, alright, let's get in this motherfucker. The movie starts off with 2 commercials, which I think is really cool. You got the Dr. Wolfenstein's creature feature, and I love that shit. Fucking Rob Zombie doing this old school horror host fucking marathon shit that, you know, sadly we don't have much of that anymore at all. We have Svengoolie keeping it going.
Right.
And then another commercial for Captain Spaulding's Museum of Monsters and Madmen, which is fucking great. Love the shit out of that.
Rolling fucking image of... There's the classic image of Spaulding doing that smile, and they just like multiply it and have it scrolling across the screen.
Yeah, I will say though, this movie, have you ever watched it on DVD?
Yeah.
I love all the amount of shit that Rob Zombie put in this DVD. Just for the menus alone, like as soon as you turn it on, it says, ring bell for service. You hit the select button, and Captain Spaulding comes out there, and he's just talking shit to you the whole time. Fucking love it.
One thing that's interesting about this opening is I believe the studio, somebody wanted Dr. Wolfenstein to be Rob Zombie. Like that, or maybe that was the original plan, was that he was to play Dr. Wolfenstein, almost a director introducing you to the movie Frankenstein style, but I like that they didn't go with that. Rob Zombie instead is the hunchbacked assistant that's swinging the axe in the background.
Yeah. And so the commercial's great. Do you like blood, violence, and gore? It just tastes so damn good. I fucking love it, dude. Fucking love it.
He does like a little... he goes anime for a second right at the end. He does like such a sick peace sign. I would buy his chicken.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
complimentary.
Yeah, it might make you sick, but it'll be worth it.
Might be made of human parts, but there's only one way to find out.
Yeah. And so...
Continue. I wanted to shout out that this movie was... the director of photography was Tom Richmond, and he actually was a professor of mine at Five Towns.
Really?
Yeah, he wasn't a cinematography professor for me. He was my lighting teacher, so even he kind of was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. But sadly, he passed away last year, so I wanted to make sure to shout him out on this podcast because he was a super fucking chill dude. I feel like I learned more from him just catching him on his smoke breaks, you know what I mean? Like, just outside. It was a really interesting experience being in his class. He fucking shot the Jeremy music video for Pearl Jam.
Oh, wow.
He had a lot of good credits under his belt. And I just had a lot of chill conversations with him over punk rock and stuff like that. During my last day of his class, when we were taking our test, I showed up with a Black Flag shirt, and I'm handing my test to him, and I'm being nice. I'm like, I hope I did well, I hope I got most of these answers right. And he just looks up at me, he's like, well, you're a punk rock kind of guy, right? So shouldn't you just be thinking, fuck it? I was like, you know what, yeah. I was like, good point. So that was the kind of guy that, like, I didn't know him super well, but for the experiences that I had with him, super chill guy.
That's awesome.
It's a shame that we lost him. He did a great job with this, and a lot of the behind-the-scenes footage for House of a Thousand Corpses got destroyed. Whether it was a fire, something happened at Universal where finding behind-the-scenes footage is kind of rare for this movie. And while he was alive on Facebook, if I did find anything, let's say there was a YouTube review that had like a little snippet, I would send it to him and be like, yo, I think I see you.
Hey, hold on 1 second. I got a call.
Oh, no problem.
All right, y'all, sorry. Had a call that I had to take, so we are back.
Yes. Long story short, this podcast goes out to Tom Richmond. This is for you, Tom. Here we go.
There you go, Tom. And so we get probably, after the two commercials, we get probably the coolest opening to any movie I've ever seen. Love the shit out of it. We have Captain Spaulding and everybody chilling at the Museum of Murder and Madmen. And this old guy and Spaulding are talking, and just talking a little bit of shit with each other about some kid. He's like, oh, the retard that sits over there, da-da-da-da, just talking shit. And
sticks a fucking pencil in his eye. What?
Yeah.
That old guy is Michael J. Pollard, and he's a character actor in a ton of shit. I believe he was in one of the Sleepaway Camp sequels.
Yeah.
But I always recognize him from Scrooged. He's the homeless guy.
Yeah.
But we were talking about this before. Some people like to twist it as a negative, but I see it as a positive going into that Tarantino connection. I love how Rob Zombie just knows who he wants in his movies. He picks these character actors who are like in the DNA of horror in some way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Just like Tarantino will use a lot of the same actors and even refresh the careers of certain actors, like, you know, John Travolta at the time. Rob Zombie did the same thing for Bill Moseley and Sid Haig, definitely.
For sure. And Tarantino's used Sid Haig in Jackie Brown for a small part. But even beyond that, just like bringing obscure people into more mainstream affairs. Like, I still love that Clu Gulager for as short as his scene was. He was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in the bookstore. I was like, wow, you know who I haven't seen in a movie in a long time, let alone like a big-time Hollywood production? Clu fucking Gulager.
And even on the commentary, because there's two commentaries for this movie. There's one with Rob Zombie by himself, and then there's one with Sherry Moon, Sid Haig, and Bill Moseley. And both commentaries are great, but on the one with Sid Haig, Sherry, and Bill, Sid Haig mentions that he says, you know, I just want to thank Rob Zombie for revitalizing my career. He said he was ready to hang it up until this movie came along.
And it's such a fun character, too. Like, not only is it such a good performance to reinvigorate someone's career, but it's like you get so much energy out of doing it, too. It's not just a job to get, like, the money rolling back in. It's like you could tell, like, he's not just wearing that Spalding suit. Like, I love the little touches of his character, like when he hits his little fucking bow tie and starts chattering his teeth.
Yeah. And so we get them talking, and you know, it's just throwaway dialogue. You know, these characters being characters, and talking about Dr. Zaius being stuck halfway up the kid's butt. And then he's like, you know, I gotta pee, and we get a bit of a continuity issue. So the old man's got glasses on, and then Sid Haig hands him this big old monster hand with a key to the bathroom, and the monster hand is showing, it's doing the finger. And so while he goes to the bathroom, you get somebody, I love this shot of the camera running up to the door, and it's just that, from that moment on, it's pure chaos. These two guys bust in the shop, asking for money, and Spalding's like not flinching. He's just like, you know, how about I jump off this counter and bash your balls in, and it's just not going well for these two big ass oafs. And what I think is weird though is how did they know somebody else was in there in the bathroom? He's like, hey, go in the bathroom and get that other guy. I'm like, it's kind of hard to see through these windows.
Right. It's like they were scoping out the place beforehand or something.
Yeah.
And they're trying way too hard to play the tough guys, which Spalding, who is like a literal psychopath, like immediately like plays with.
Yeah.
He's a clown who uses the people as his props in a way. And what's it called? You could take this chicken, take it home to your mama, shove it up your ass.
Yeah. And so when they get the old man out of the bathroom, his glasses are gone. Rob Zombie mentioned that for some reason that actor didn't want to wear the glasses anymore and was complaining about them. So Zombie said, okay, so they shot a scene of him in the bathroom taking the glasses off and laying them on the counter. But he said they had to cut that scene for time, which is fine. I mean, you could just assume he took the glasses off in the bathroom, you know, to wash them off or whatever. But then when you see the hand again that has the key on it, the hand is, I can't remember if all the fingers are extended or if it's in a fist. I can't remember, but there's a slight continuity issue with the hand.
There are ways your mind can work around it where it's like maybe he got roughed up by the guy in the bathroom, that's why his glasses are off. And, you know, maybe that hand is just a human hand. That's why it's just retracting and fucking, like, you could just pose it.
Yeah.
and things.
But then you get this great shit. The old man starts to recognize the one guy, calls his name, and it has this little song about his little dick.
Little Dick Wick played with his prick.
Yeah. And he pulls his mask off. Stop singing that. I hate that song. And just ruining it all. These guys are not great robbers. And I love this entire exchange with, I'm going to count to 10. You better give me this money. 1. Fuck yo mama.
Fuck your sister. That's my favorite line delivery.
3. Fuck your grandmama.
Even before that, he says the wrong thing. He's like, I don't like chicken. And I hate clowns.
Yeah.
And like you could hear the music tone change, and fucking he starts growling.
Yeah, Spalding's smile goes to this like just mean ass face. But then you get this other guy. The other guy comes in there with this big ass mask and just knocks the one dude out, and then I guess Spalding shoots the other oaf.
Yeah.
And then I love this shit. He walks up there to the fucking dude laying down. The dude's beat the fuck up. And he's like, and most of all, fuck you. Bah, bah, bah. I love the way that's shot. In other movies, when they do something like that, it's always one shot and it just goes to black. I love that, man, this motherfucker shoots him in the face 3 times and it doesn't go black. Like, you see every bit of it.
Yeah, like flashes a little bit, and then you have a nice little pacing moment where right before the credits start rolling, oh, god damn it, motherfucker got blood on my best clown suit.
Yeah.
and you got that one last stinger, and it's like that kind of sets the mood for like, here's where you're going for the next hour and a half.
Yeah, this is not the fucking mainstream horror movie you've seen in the past decade. Like, this
is like weird amalgamation of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Rocky Horror Picture Show, and some fucking Italian giallo.
Yeah. And then the opening is really cool. You get the House of a Thousand Corpses song from Rob Zombie playing, and just all this weird random ass footage that, like you said, is very could have easily inspired American Horror Stories openings, because I just like disturbing imagery anyway, just shot really cool and weird looking.
And together well, and it's also it's like a double purpose too, because now he has footage he could use for his live shows as well when he's on tour.
Yeah, and he said a lot of that shit he filmed at his house.
Yes, the earliest stuff that they filmed was like the characters talking to the camera, like the Run Rabbit stuff.
Yeah.
Almost audition footage, like just character bio stuff, just to see how they feel. I guess like it wasn't even really super planned. They just kind of fucked around and improvised, and it made it into the movie.
Yeah, I love all of those bits, all of those scenes that look like they were just filmed on a shitty ass old camera, and they're just giving these weird fucking monologues or just doing weird shit.
And Rob is like actually behind the camera. Like we always, like directors, yes, they're behind the camera, so to say. But like with those particular shots, it's like, yeah, there's no crew. This is just Rob fucking around with the cast.
Yeah, they're all just hanging out at his house, probably drinking some beers, and like, hey man, I'm just gonna turn this on and you just say some weird shit. I'm sure none of it was like pre-written.
Try saying this,
Fucking love that shit. So boom, it cuts to what does it cut? It cuts to the cheerleaders, right? Talking about the cheerleaders who have gone missing.
Yeah, there's a little news clipping before we're introduced to our main schmucks, basically.
Yeah, and so these cheerleaders have gone missing, and then it cuts to, you just got 2 guys. You've got fucking Dwight from The Office and another guy driving in the car. And
you got Chris Hardwick, which kind of started a little collaboration between the two. He would go on... Chris Hardwick's well known for Talking Dead and just being part of...
Which one is Chris Hardwick?
Long-haired guy. He's wearing clearly a wig. He's like the Silent Bob.
The chubby dude?
Yeah, dude, that's Chris.
Wow, dude, I would have never known. I always know Chris Hardwick from fucking Talking Dead, like you said, and he's skinny and got blonde hair. Like, dude, I would have never guessed.
Yeah, they put him in this fucking this Kevin Smith cosplay, and they're like, just play the biggest douche, but he almost is like a childlike douche to the point where it's not an Eli Roth hostile character just yet. Like, he's just way too excited for his own good.
Yeah,
and,
he's just an annoying character to everybody.
He can't keep it in his pants with all this weird horror stuff that he loves. He's the original true crime podcaster, really.
Yeah, so they're on a trip to write a book about weird roadside attractions, which is odd because you'd think that they were headed here anyway. If that, they should have a list of places to go. Maybe Spalding's isn't well known, so they don't know. They originally just drive over there to make a phone call. So old girl, and the thing is I never remember the names of these characters. Chris Hardwick, I know, is Jerry with a J, but I never remember the names of these characters. And one complaint people give is, you don't care about these characters, they're assholes. And thing is like, when it comes to horror movies, like, I don't give a fuck if anyone's likable. Like, I just want to see fucked up shit happen. Fucked up shit I've never seen before. Fucked up shit I've seen before, just done differently. I could care less what happens to any of these characters. And that, to me, is not a down point. But a lot of people...
You don't need to have necessarily likable characters as long as they're interesting. I prefer when you have somebody to root for, but in a Rob Zombie movie, number one, the killers are the leads. They're the people you're rooting for. And then, number two, these characters are more so our guides just into the sentences.
They're the audience surrogate.
Do you know what Jerry's last name is? I literally just found this out just through looking up pictures of him.
What's this?
Nice little in-joke is the character's full name is Jerry Goldsmith.
Oh, look at that.
So that's pretty interesting.
Classic movie composer. So yeah, they go up in there and they see all this crazy cool shit, and Jerry's all into it, and it starts. So Rainn Wilson. See, I can't remember his fucking name.
Yeah, just call them by their actor names. Honestly, again, if they didn't say Jerry enough, it is kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where they keep shouting Jerry. Whoever's name gets shouted the most, you remember that guy.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna call him Dwight. Dwight from
Josh.
Dwight from The Office. So he's asking Spalding all these questions, and Spalding just ain't having it, just fucking with him the whole time. And when they first walk in there, I like it because it's like the shit just went down right before these guys showed up. They're mopping up the blood off the floor.
He's wearing his fucking "If I wanted to listen to an asshole, I'd fart" t-shirt.
Yeah.
He's just in his casual, like he's practically in his underwear.
Yeah, he's pretty much wearing pajamas at this point because he got blood all over his favorite clown suit. And so yeah, he's just fucking with him the whole time. The old man is gone, and he's telling him about the little murder ride, and the girls go to pee, and Jerry's just flipping out over all the cool shit that's on display. And the girls come out, and the girls aren't having it. The girls are like, "Fuck this, we need to go." Because she calls her dad, and I love this shot of the neighborhood and all the trick or treaters. And he mentions that Halloween's on a school night, therefore everybody's trick or treating that night. And so if this is the night before Halloween, this would probably have to be a Sunday night, which is dumb because Halloween is the next day, Therefore, this Sunday night that everybody else is trick-or-treating on is also a school night.
Right, right.
And I don't understand that. Whenever Halloween is on a Sunday, they do it on Saturday here. But on a school night, they still do it here. But his whole explanation just kind of doesn't make sense, like at all, because it would have to be a Saturday. And well, you know what? We'll say it. Maybe this is a Saturday night, and Halloween is on a Sunday, which would make that a school night. So you know what? My whole argument here is invalid.
And it's kind of funny with these shots of the neighborhood and even the interior of the dad's house, who's played by fucking old-ass Private Ryan from Saving Private Ryan. You could see a producer's head, like the wheels in their head turning about, like, Rob Zombie should do a Halloween movie somewhere down the line. Because, like, even the interior of that house looks like one of the, like, those fucking 70s. It looks like where Jamie Lee Curtis would be watching the kids, you know?
Yeah.
And it's weird that once he did finally get around to doing Halloween, number one, it was modernized. Like, the prequel segments were in the 70s, but not the actual slasher segments. So it doesn't really have that kind of quality to it. So it's kind of this weird paradox here where I could see a producer being like, we should get this guy on Halloween. And then when you get him on Halloween, he just does something completely fucking different with it.
Yeah.
Than what you wanted him to do with it.
Hell yeah. So they go on the murder ride, which is really cool. You know, I wish we had stuff like this, just random ass places we could go to. And you gotta love the fact that, like, this isn't necessarily a ride. They're sitting in a fucking cart and it's being pushed.
By the guy behind them who's fucking with the girl's hair, but he's like, Jerry, stop.
Yeah, and Spalding I like too, because he's still wearing that "if I wanted to hear an asshole, I'd fart" shirt, but he just went ahead and slapped on his Uncle Sam coat right over it instead of getting in his full garb.
Right.
But yeah, it's a really intricate fucking ride for something like this, like the lighting, the sound effects, the animatronics. It's actually, like, for a podunk ass building like that, it's actually a pretty damn good ride.
Yeah, it makes you wonder where they found some of these. Like, where do you find a zombie rising from a grave that goes, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, like, it's
I want that thing.
such a cool ass scene, because me and Stas, we like to go to all the Halloween attractions and stuff. Hadn't been since COVID, but we like to go to a few every year, and it's been a minute. But I like that whole scene because, you know, we like that shit.
And that's where the first, like, instance of the split screen really comes into play.
Yeah,
Before,
it's cool.
the opening scene, they did, like, the repeating frame stuff. Like, when the door opens, it's like, chung, chung, chung.
Yeah, door opens 3 times, and the dude turns around 3 times.
And dude gets shot 3 times, so it kind of, like, pays off in that regard.
Yeah, and this is where we got a shot of Lizzie Borden, we get some Albert Fish, and we get some Ed Gein. Then he tells you about, this is where we get the Dr. Satan bit. And it's this whole legend there, wherever they're at in Texas. And it was a crazy ass. He wanted to make a superior race out of mental patients, which is interesting.
And I love how they do save the best for last, not only because he's the only fictional one out of them, but also because, like, they wrote this giant backstory for him. Again, another very American Horror Story-esque thing. These over-the-top characters with weird, crazy designs and backstories.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Satan would later be redesigned for El Super Bisto, but that's basically, like, a completely different character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I kind of appreciate. I kind of like that he kind of took the piss out of his own badass character. But yeah, this is where you kind of get the hints of the supernatural stuff that's going to go later. You can't say they didn't warn you about Dr. Satan.
Mm-hmm.
That they're going to follow up on this. And he has the coolest animatronic.
Yeah. And they say that the whole town hung him up on a tree, and then like the next day his body was gone, and they never found his body. So when the riot is over, the girls are ready to leave, and Jerry's like, oh man, we need to find this tree, we need to find this tree, and he's trying so hard to get a map drawn. And, you don't know that Captain Spaulding is in cahoots with this family until the end of the movie. So if it's a first-time watch, you think he's just giving them a damn directions, and they just accidentally happen upon the group. Whereas in retrospect, he's given them a map going straight to the Firefly house.
Right. And if they didn't have that opening where he killed somebody right off the bat, there probably wouldn't even be suspicion of it. He would just be a wacky side character, especially the way Rob Zombie writes characters. You really wouldn't be sure. I think, you kind of have a suspicion just because he's the first person we see kill anybody. But he's also kind of like more demented than the Joker in a way, where it's like he's always got kind of a welcoming smile on his face, and even when he's saying like rude or like off-putting stuff, he always seems like he's trying to be your buddy.
Yeah. And even so, too, like, him killing those guys, those are just some random-ass robbers. This could just be completely unrelated to anything going on in the movie. So, like, for me, I never had any suspicion. I was just like, this is just some dudes that tried to rob his ass, and he took care of it.
Self-defense.
Exactly.
And I love how you start to see Spaulding get a little more annoyed. Like, he has that grin on his face. He's acting all nice. But then by the time they get around to the map, it's like, you do have a point where, like, even he's being the old man warding them off. Like, nah, you don't need the map. And he kind of just is like, fine, here's your fucking map. If you don't find it, too bad.
Yeah.
Take the complimentary chicken.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And so they hop in there, and it's raining, man. It is pouring ass rain. And so they drive further on up, and out of nowhere, there is Sherry Moon Zombie standing there as the character Baby. And what is that? Oh, it's a hitchhiker. So here is one Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because the movie is, and it does get compared to Chainsaw Massacre, because it does follow that people stuck somewhere in a crazy people's house and picking up a crazy hitchhiker, But the thing is even though they're using this trope, it does a lot of original things with it, as opposed to every time they try to do another Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where it just feels played out and fucking boring. Even down to this movie does a dinner scene, and it's cool. It's its own little dinner scene. But every Chainsaw movie needs to do the dinner scene, and it's like, why are we doing this again?
Right, after Chainsaw 2, because they at least tried to like up the ante a little bit with the set design. After that, there's really no point of the dinner scene other than this was the scariest thing about the original, so if we put it in here, maybe we'll have a little bit of that spark. Where it's like, no, we just want to see something done creatively. Like, not even necessarily new, because not only is Bill Moseley like part of, Texas Chainsaw alumni, basically, but he even wears the skin of the old man. So it could be seen as an homage, it could be seen as a throwback, but it's done so well where you're not immediately... You could compare the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it doesn't feel like a ripoff or even a bad like sequel or reboot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this... If anything, you could say this is a better Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake than the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake.
Which actually had people who were involved with the original, so that says something, you know what I mean? The same cinematographer for the original Texas Chainsaw did that remake, and just decided to go for I guess it's an admirable thing. Like, he decided to go for, we need to make this look different from the original, so he went for that sleek kind of look. But that remake really set the standard for all those Platinum Dunes remakes to come.
Yeah.
Where, again, we almost reverted for a little bit in the 2010s. Like, House of a Thousand Corpses and Saw and Hostel brought us back to that grittiness of exploitation from the 70s a little bit. And then the Platinum Dunes remakes were like, I kind of like that sterile Dawson's Creekiness from Doom days.
Yeah, Platinum Dunes definitely didn't help matters.
Michael Bay?
Which is, for weirdly enough, right now, probably the most popular people in horror is Jason Blum. But I like most of the Jason Blum shit. Like, there's a polish to some of them, but then there's a grit to some of them, and then to me, the Jason Blum shit's really kind of adds to stuff, you know. There's more comedy horror shit, you know. I don't know.
There's versatility, like to Blumhouse.
Yeah.
There's a balance with Blum, if you will. But after that, they pick up Baby, and she's not the hitchhiker, though. You know what I mean? So it's like, yes, you're already kind of like, similar setup, but her personality is so much different than a character you would see in a Texas Chainsaw movie. And I know a lot of people try to spin it as a criticism that's like, she's annoying. And it's like, well, no, yeah, that's part of the character. That's like her weapon. Her laugh is like her sonic screech, you know what I mean?
Yeah, she's being crazy because she's just met these motherfuckers and she's trying to get them to their house. So
she's smart enough to play up like a theatrical element to it, but then once you actually see her in the home too, you also see that she really is the baby of the household. You know what I mean? The relationship between mama and baby is like, she never really grew up. She gets what she wants, and she leans into it. So it's not like she's always this giggly little girl, because we see later when she's torturing people, she has that nasty side where she drops all the pretenses. Just, what's my name? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's that scale?
No, she can get it. You know what I mean? She knows that she could get what she wants when she turns into this baby.
Yeah. So they get up there, and when they're driving, she's being annoying, and then there goes Rufus with a gun, and he shoots out their tire. So they get out, Jerry and Dwight get out of the car, and he's like, well, thank God we had that spare. You did fill it up, right? And he's like, well, what if I forgot to put it back in the trunk? What would plan B be? Oh, God, dude.
He always has, like, an excuse up his sleeve. He never actually, like, owns up to, I fucked up. One of my favorite lines at the beginning is, like, do you want to drive? You know I can't see the lines on the road at night. I keep telling you that.
Yeah, I don't have night vision.
It's just anything he could say to get out of doing, like, the brunt of the work.
Yeah, and then for a second, he even tries to own up to it. When they get back in the car, she's like, Baby says, well, my house is just right over here. We can walk. And they're all like, well, no use in all of us getting wet. And Jerry's straight up, oh, it's my fault, I'll go. And then, but nah, Dwight from the office is like, no, I'll go. So
he just wanted to go with the girl.
Yeah.
Because that's my one nitpick with this movie, and maybe it's a joke in and of itself, but it's like, I have no idea what the girlfriend characters see in these dudes.
Yeah, for real. Seriously.
Like, they don't even have, like, a nerdy quality to them. Like, they don't seem interested in horror, you know what I mean? Or any of that kind of, like, that's not their hobby. So, again, it could just be seen as, like, that's the joke. But it just makes me wonder how these people even met in the first place. Like, maybe Dwight, I get it, because there's that scene, like, you don't have to play it up so, like, to be cool in front of your girl. Like, he knows how to, like, kind of pull it back a little bit, act right in front of his girl. But he's like an awkward nerd too, because when he's in the fucking house, he's doing the moose joke.
Yeah.
That could just be that he's uncomfortable though, because she's like immediately like ass hanging out like on top of him.
Yeah, so they get out of the door and there's all these dolls just hung up on the wall, and she's like, yeah, I like to, these are all my dolls. I like to just take their heads off and stick them on the wall. And And she says,
Nothing,
but if you'll
nothing but
notice, like,
bags here.
if you'll notice, it's supposed to be pouring rain, like, fucking Dwight from The Office, his face is wet a little bit, but his clothes are straight up fucking dry.
Yeah.
And then there's a shot later on where it shows that he has changed his clothes and he's got them hanging up, and now they're like wet. But I never understand this. Like, you couldn't just drench the clothes you had the character on wearing.
Yeah, movies have a weird, like, insta-dry. I always think of, the most infamous one is Jaws the Revenge, when Michael Caine, like, dived into the water to get out of the plane. And then he's climbing the boat. Like, he just got out of the water, and he's perfectly, like, not even a stain.
Yeah.
All right.
Seriously. So what happens next, man? It cuts back to she lets him in the house, and it cuts back to everybody in the car. Jerry's asleep, and the girls are playing cards, and then Rufus comes along and beats on the hood of the car, and they're freaking out. But oh no, it's the tow truck guy. So yeah, he's got the tow truck, and he picks up the car and.
I love Rufus's look in this movie. I don't remember the actor's name who plays him in Corpses, this one specifically, because he gets recasted as Tyler Mane in Devil's Rejects, which began like their friendship, Tyler Mane and Rob Zombie. He would go on to be Michael Myers. But I just like this bear man, basically.
Yeah, wearing the animal skin, and you kind of wonder.
Bear man.
You kind of wonder what he's into. Obviously, he's into hunting and shit, but it's like there's a lot of motherfuckers in this movie that when Devil's Rejects came along, they had to cut a few heads pretty quick just to focus on Baby, Spalding, and Otis.
It is a pretty packed family, and in my notes, like, I even try to figure it out sometimes, like, who's related to who, like, actually completely.
Because in Rejects, you find out that Captain Spaulding is Otis and Baby's dad. Well, Tiny, I always assumed, is their brother, and Tiny his mom is obviously Mother Firefly, and but his dad is the crazy fucking dude, mutant guy in the deep underground in Dr. Satan's lair.
Yeah, the My Bloody Valentine guy.
Yeah.
Basically. Harry Warden, or whatever his name was.
So it's like one big crazy fucking Brady bunch.
So Otis actually isn't any of their kids. He's adopted. That's why they made him, in the first movie, that's why they made him the albino. They wanted to make him distinctly look like he's not actually one of them. He's an adopted son. So this is what I've kind of gotten, because I haven't found a website that actually shows a family tree or anything like that. This is just from what I've been reading, what I could gather, but Mama Firefly was a prostitute, so she was having babies with, like, multiple men. So Baby is Captain Spaulding's kid. That's that family unit. Mama Firefly, Baby, and Spaulding. RJ is Rufus Jr., so Mama had him with a dude named Rufus.
Yeah.
We see. Tiny was Earl's kid, the fucking minor dude. So that's correct.
Wow, minor dude has a name?
Yeah, that's Earl. That's Earl Firefly.
Where did you get that?
She mentions the name Earl, I think, at the dinner table scene.
Yeah, when she tells the story of Tiny being burned and shit.
And then this is also kind of alluded to in the lyrics to Pussy Liquor by Rob Zombie. He kind of does like, oh, Mama had a baby, baby was her name. And he kind of goes into like all the fucking characters' backstories that he had at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's white as a ghost, totally insane. But so he's adopted. He's Otis Driftwood. His last name is literally Driftwood.
Mm-hmm.
we never see Grandpa even in Devil's Rejects.
Yeah.
I think that he's a driftwood, but I could be wrong because they have similar like hair.
Yeah, that stringy, balding.
Mutton chops, you know.
Yeah.
Because they don't even kill him off in Devil's Rejects. Like, he's just not there.
Yeah,
Grandpa.
you can just assume he died of old age in between films.
He was screaming during one of his show times and he keeled over.
Eat your wife's pussy!
He starts gripping his heart. Oh, man, I can't wait to talk about that scene because that is the editing of that scene is flawless.
It is glorious.
I have no idea what the actual stand-up set was because you just cut from like line after line after line. But Chris Hardwick's really enjoying it.
Yeah. So now they're all in the house, and like you said, Baby's just ass hanging out, sitting all over Dwight from The Office.
She does look really good in the glasses, though, not gonna lie. Like, as awkward as the scene is, like, if she asked me that, I'd be like, hell yeah.
And then, huh?
No, I was just laughing, you're good.
Yeah, so now Karen Black comes down the stairs as Mama Firefly, and, just prostituting around.
Another actress that we lost, I don't remember how many years ago it was since she passed away.
It's been roughly 10 years, maybe a little more. I don't know why she didn't come back to play on Devil's Rejects, because he had recast her too.
I think it was like a scheduling thing.
Probably.
I have no idea. Yeah, because she was alive during Devil's Rejects, and I've gone back and forth on who I think is the better Mama Firefly, but since she is the original, and again, it's Karen Black, like, going back to Rob Zombie probably wrote this character with her in mind, specifically. I can't remember the second actress's name, because I do love that performance in Devil's Reject as well. They're both very good. Almost two different characters. They have similar things to them. I just love the whole look of Karen Black, though, in this movie, though. Like, I would believe that she's Baby's mom.
Yeah, the way they act together, you know, they do feel like mother and daughter.
And, like, a really fucked up kind of relationship where it's like, I'm living through my daughter. Like, I just give my daughter nothing but praise. She does no wrong, you know.
Yeah.
She's almost got, like, a Trish Paytas look to her. Not to be mean, but she looks like that YouTuber Trish Paytas a little bit.
I don't even know who that is.
Oh, man, I'll send you a picture after the podcast. Oh, man, that's a little mean, but no shade thrown. That's just what I was thinking of.
And so, Mother Firefly is talking about how it's Halloween Eve and how they're getting ready for
Halloween in this house. They celebrate it hard fucking core, and the moment that the one girl is like, no, I think we're just too old. It's kind of like the I hate clowns when the robber said it. Like, you could just tell, like, oh, like, you shouldn't have said that. Like, that cut deep with them.
Yeah. And, guys, so what happens after this? Is it the dinner scene after this?
Pretty much the opening of this, because this is all pretty much still the first act of the movie, but it moves very fast. It moves pretty smoothly, actually, where we have moments where the characters are sitting around getting to know each other, but it doesn't drag. We're like, all right,
like,
this
I love the random ass cuts to shit that has nothing to do with anything, like Skunk Ape. Oh,
yeah.
And you know, Skunk Ape is an actual cryptid creature down in Florida.
Yeah.
And I just like the shit out of this. It's like did wrong things with my wife and all this, and it's all.
I like how specifically he went for Skunk Ape, that he didn't say Sasquatch. And early in the movie, you have these cutaways that, like you said, they just didn't want the footage to go to waste. It's psychedelic, it's music video kind of thing. But the Skunk Ape scene is actually really well done because they establish that it's this girl's nightmare. Like, she's in the dream. I like the coloring of it, and I like how it's like, this is rare for me to say, but I like how it's a jump scare that actually pays off, where it takes its time. You kind of settle into, like, you get used to the weird fucking filters over the colors.
Mm-hmm. I fucking love that too. The weird filters over the colors and it's just a cool ass movie to fucking look at. Every scene, every frame.
And it goes dead silent for a moment, and it allows you to perfectly read out Dr. Satan before he does his pop out. So, I don't know, something about that whole sequence hit really well. There's also the guy that they cut to, he lives rent-free in my head. This is hell! We don't need to go to hell! This is hell!
Yeah. And so we get the dinner scene, I guess, and everyone's sitting there. They got these weird masks, and also we've had cuts to Baby fucking around with people, and Otis. We get the first glimpse of Otis up there with the cheerleaders with some crazy ass monologue that makes no fucking sense at all.
You and your sentimental minds are doing me no good.
Yeah.
Fucking, I like how they did do a lot of changing with Otis from here to Devil's Rejects, but it doesn't feel like a complete character shift. Where this is almost Otis's edgy teenage years. This is him like, I am the leader of the rebellion. He actually like feels like he could still make a change with his sick actions. And then by the time we're introduced to him in Rejects, no matter how much time has passed between them, he's just gotten a little more colder, a little more sterile. Like, the first thing we see him is he's literally sleeping with a corpse.
Yeah. And
it's kind of like he's dropped the pretension a little bit, but this is him in his prog rock phase. Like, he's working on the album.
Yeah, this is him in his comfort zone. So he they can get people to the house, he can tie them up, and he can say weird shit before he kills them. Whereas in Rejects, like I said, they're on the run. He can't do crazy monologues. He can't be all weird and crazy until the hotel scene.
That's right, and even then, in the hotel scene, like, Spaulding and Baby are giving him shit, like, you could have blown our cover, because he wanted to do the whole skin carving thing again. And who knows, when he has these girls in his, in corpses, that is, when he has these girls tied up, who knows if he even believes half this bullshit he's spouting. This could just be the hallucination of the day, you know what I mean?
Just shit he's saying to these people just because he can.
It's just brain dribble.
And
but so, a good brain dribble. It's very it's some of Rob Zombie's better dialogue, and I think it's amplified by the fact that you have such an erratic performance from Bill Moseley.
And so they're all sitting at the table, and Tiny shows up, and you get your first glimpse of Tiny, this big ass deformed motherfucker. And he sits down, and then she writes down, go get Grandpa. So he gets back up to go get Grandpa. And she says, yeah, well, you gotta forgive Tiny because he ain't too good on hearing ever since his dad tried to burn him. I don't think he was trying to hurt nobody. Like, bitch, he covered this motherfucker in gas and...
Yeah, there's no way to spin it that like it was an accident. He literally just busts down the door and starts dousing him.
Yeah. So then Otis comes down and he's got this fetus in a jar.
Yeah, he just brought his friend to dinner.
And they all sit down. Grandpa comes in. Grandpa's hilarious.
Yeah. Definitely one of the standout characters. Him, Spaulding, and Otis, I think, are my favorites of this movie.
Yeah, Grandpa is just a dirty, nasty old man. And Otis says some shit. Because they're asking about the legend of Dr. Satan.
I think because this movie was going to get compared to Texas Chainsaw regardless, like I feel like they were aware of that when they were filming this.
Yeah.
You notice that the dinner table scene really isn't that long. They do the masks. It's almost, and I said it before, it's almost more of a Rocky Horror Picture Show scene than anything. It's almost like the scene with Eddie underneath the table.
Yeah, it's a very quick scene, and we get the next thing you know, you got a demon sticking out of your ass, screaming, "Holy Miss Molly, got me a live one!" And I love that whole bit, but for the life of me, I still don't understand what the fuck any of that means.
Right, and again, this is what I was saying, where it's like they all chime in on it, like this is just something they say.
Yeah.
They all get it, and you get a little bit more of that in Devil's Rejects too, when they meet Ken Foree. It's like, no use standing out here like Stonefoot Roosters in a fuck bomb. I'm like, okay.
And so they say, put your masks on, you know, we're not going to eat dessert until we put the masks on, and so they put the masks on, and
right, they just want to leave, but they're dragging it out. Like, I love when, in the previous scene, Mama's like, should be a couple of hours.
yeah,
you know, it's prolonging it even more, and it's like, you know, Tanya don't have a car, you don't even have a bike.
yeah, and
Kind of the, I would want to ask Kevin Smith if this movie played into Tusk at all. Probably not, but it almost feels like a Tusk situation as well, especially with what happens to Rainn Wilson.
yeah, hell yeah, fucking fish boy.
Fish boy!
So right after this is Showtime, isn't it?
Yes.
So we
The
got
best
Grandpa
thing is that you'll never find on
Showtime.
HBO.
Say what?
I love how he does this scream into the mic that peaks the audio, but then he does this little musician's, like, he ends the note.
Yeah, like God, what? How do you describe that? He just makes the fist for his stop.
Yeah, he does the stop, because he draws, like, the little line and then fist. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love how he opens on the scream and then calmly, like, let me tell you a little story.
Yeah, it is. It's like if Sam Kinison was a fucking serial killer.
Pretty much, yeah. It's very Kinnison-like, He's doing the little, like, licking the pussy motion with his fingers.
Yeah.
This editing was used a little bit earlier in the movie. I noticed, like, this quick, just, you can't really tell what's going on. There was when they wanted to do the murder ride. The girls are like, oh, I don't really want to do it. And Chris Hardwick's just like, no, we're going. And then it just quick cuts to him going, like, dragging the girl, like, see you in the horror ride, and then it quick cuts again, and they're in the horror ride.
Yeah.
So he has, like, this comedic timing that he likes, like, just, too fast for you to process, you know what I mean? Where you almost start laughing just from the absurdity.
Yeah, it's very disorientating, and a lot of people complain about this. A lot of people, oh, it's because Rob Zombie has only ever directed music videos, and music videos have quick cuts and da-da-da-da-da. But it's like, thing is, man, is the shit is just cool. The shit is...
it's just simplifying it. Like, if it doesn't gel with you, like, that's one thing, you know what I mean? But, I think that simplifying it just to be like, well, because he did music videos. For this movie, yes. I mean, sure, experience plays a lot into it, but I feel like Rob's a kind of guy who was thinking a little bit more about it, though.
Yeah, like, I think everything in this movie was done on purpose. And
yeah, not like there was any deep meaning behind it, but there was purpose. Like, he knew what he wanted to see from it.
Yeah. And, so then Baby comes out and does this Betty Boop song. Oh, this Betty Boop shit. I wanna be loved by you. And what's funny is, like, Chris Hardwick is, like, all into it, thinking it's, like, this amazing shit, and I'm just like, not really. She's just up there lip singing.
Yeah, I'm easily entertained by stuff like that, too. This is like a weird horror burlesque moment.
Yeah, like, it's cool, but, like, it's nothing to be like, wow, oh my god, this is amazing. You know, like, bro, she's just dressed weird, and she's lip singing, man, like.
And I love the shots of Mama behind the light, like, this is, like, her daughter at the talent show.
Yeah, her daughter has made it. Her daughter is going to
like,
Hollywood.
She's gone full Honey Boo Boo, like she's doing the fucking motions behind the light, like with her, like they've trained, they've done this.
Yeah, it's like there's almost like a backstory there that maybe they wanted Baby to go to Hollywood and never really made it, and
then she married Rob Zombie.
Yeah,
that would actually be the happy ending.
And so she starts, getting up in everybody's faces, and she starts messing with Chris Hardwick, and his little girlfriend's like, "Get your hands off of him," and pushes her down, and she's like, "Well, how about I
actually do something?" The girls, you know what I mean? This is where finally, because they've always, throughout the movie, the girls have been rolling their eyes, like they clearly haven't been cool with the situation. She yelled at Mama before, like, a couple of hours, but they never really lost their shit. They've just been kind of ho-hum and like, this sucks. This is the first time one of them's like, I'm done. I'm done with this shit.
And she pushes Baby down, and Baby gets back up talking about, how about I cut your fucking tits off and shove them down your throat? And, shit's done escalated, and right before it's all about to go down, fucking Rufus busts in, car's done. And they're like, thank God. So they all get in the car, and, so they start driving off, and I love this shot too. It's still raining, and then you got these scarecrows hanging up, and fucking Dwight from The Office gets out to open the gate, and two scarecrows hop down and just start beating the shit out of him, and then they're busting into the car to get the girls. And you see that one of them is Tiny and one of them is Otis. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Wasn't Otis just in the house?
And I like how this is just like a tactic that this family has, because we saw in the Spalding opening, the guy outside of the fucking place, he's not a standee. I don't know how he managed to get his motion so jerky like an animatronic. But you know what I mean? So they like to disguise themselves and then pop out.
Yeah.
And then this is the one time Chris Hardwick actually does jump into action. Like, he actually does get out of the car to go defend his friend, and he gets knocked out too.
Yeah.
And this is something that I like, that as much as people complain about the goofiness of the characters, it's done intentionally with purpose, like we said, because then he creates this nightmarish imagery with, like, the dank blue colors of the rain while Rainn Wilson's getting beaten in. You know what I mean? He takes these characters who... I'm trying to formulate the thought here. You almost don't expect them to be in a scenario like this because of what you've seen of them so far. Even though you know it's a horror movie, the film has kind of like this quirky comedy to it, but then when it gets balls to the wall, it drills it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's not try hard about it. It's just like, this is the real shit. So I like that when, not only in this sequence, but when they dip them down into the mines, that fucking disgusting blue lighting. I don't know how to describe it, but it's very nightmarish. It has a very dreamlike quality to it, where you've kind of exited the reality even of the movie you're in, into this nightmare. The red lighting too.
Yeah. And so all right, when was this scene about Baby with the cheerleader in her bed? Was this before the show? Cause
she was putting on the Betty Boop makeup while she was like, give me a B, give me an A, all that shit.
Yeah, what's that spell? What's that spell?
And I do like that disturbing lingering shot where she says baby, the victim, and then it pans over and there's just the dead girl sitting there on the bed, and it zooms in on her eye a little bit.
Yeah.
That was a nice little touch there that I like. That made me shiver quite a bit. Because she's fucking playing with the stuffed animal up the dead body's leg. So she's got this bipolar aspect of rage and then back to baby,
Yeah. And so what happens next? Is it where it just cuts to the next day and Otis is driving off with the car?
Yes.
Not
is
Otis,
how,
but Rufus.
ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, Rufus drives the car away, and um,
We kind of have a shining subplot with the dad of the girl because we have the scene where, oh, I gotta phone the local guy and be like, I think there's something going down over there.
yeah,
Caretakers turned out to be unreliable assholes.
yeah. So he calls from a former cop to another cop. He calls the guys over in Houston and tells them, "Hey, da 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 da. My daughter said they were going to be here, and well, they're not here yet. You know, can you go check this out?" He's like, "Yeah, they might just be stuck out in the woods. It was raining like hell." And so they go over there to Captain Spaulding's shop, and so we get another big old Captain Spaulding scene. The two cops, the two redneck cops, coming up in there, and Spaulding just fucking with him. He's like, "Have you seen this girl?" And he's like, "Yeah, you know, I've seen her, but you know, I like mine with a little more meat on their bones."
And that's the thing. So in this scene, do you still not suspect that he's in cahoots? Because it's like he's fucking with the cops, but not even in the same way that he was fucking with Rainn Wilson, where there's clearly like an animosity and like kind of a tension there.
Yeah, at this point, I still didn't suspect him. You know, I thought this was an excuse to have more Captain Spaulding.
We just wanted more of this weird guy. You know, he almost is so weird. It kind of it counterbalances itself, where it's like, oh, this guy's almost so weird. He can't do anything wrong.
Yeah. And he mentions earlier in the film about John Wayne. He's got this John Wayne tattoo, and so
that was nice.
Yeah, and so then at this point, the cop has had enough of his shit, and he's like, "Hey, all right, don't get all True Grit on my ass." A John Wayne movie.
I also love that so Tom Tolles is the main cop, not Sheriff Wydell, but Officer Wydell, which will come into play into Devil's Rejects. But his buddy, the deputy, is a young ass Walton Goggins. You know, before he was really a well-known actor.
And who is that?
So Walton Goggins has gotten a much bigger career through working with Tarantino. He was in Django Unchained. He was the one who kept saying the name wrong. Did Django, you want to hold my hand? And he was in The Hateful Eight, where he played a little bit more of an honorable character. Like, there's no real honorable characters in these movies, Rob Zombie or Tarantino. But he's like, I'm going to be the new sheriff of Red Rock. And he's got, like, a bunch of TV roles. He's gotten into the Marvel movies.
I'll be damned.
So Walton Goggins, it was kind of an eye-opener when I watched this movie for the first time, where I'm like, holy shit, I love that guy.
Yeah, damn, he does come off like a character in a Tarantino movie.
Right, yeah, he already has, like, kind of that cowboy feel to him. I'm trying to remember the TV show he's the star of right now, but I think he has, like, an HBO show that he's been on for a little bit now. So he's past the rising star phase, because Django was, like, 2012. And then after that, I started seeing him popping up in smaller roles, and now he's starting to get, maybe not lead just yet, but he's more prominent than ever.
You know what? I was wondering, okay, Walton Goggins plays on his HBO show. Let me get here. He plays Baby Billy Freeman on The Righteous Gemstones. That other cop. If you get a chance, watch that fucking show. It is hilarious.
I've heard it's great.
Yeah, and Walton Goggins, his character is motherfucking hilarious. You can't go wrong with Danny McBride and all them motherfuckers. It's just a great ass fucking show.
Yeah, he's a very what's the word I'm looking for? Not prolific. Diverse in acting, where you could have him in serious stuff and in comedy. He works both ways.
Yeah, a really cool fucking character actor. That's what I love about character actors. They're motherfuckers that's like, damn, he's familiar. And then you look it up and you're like, damn, he's been in all this shit.
People who literally act for a living, who become the other characters.
Yeah.
And again, we see even more of them as the Rob Zombie movies go along. He starts working with Brian Posehn a lot.
And so after this, they're on the hunt for the ladies. And I guess it cuts back to Otis. He's got the one girl tied up, and he's giving another crazy monologue. And this about and I'm not talking about White Sox with Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck on the other. Apparently, Rob Zombie has said that whole exchange was some shit his gym teacher said to him when he was in school.
I ain't reading no funny books, Mama.
And he's like, I'm trying to work. She's screaming. He's like, I'm trying to work. Da, 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 da. She's like, why are you doing this? And, let me, where the hell is Dwight? And, oh, you want to see Dwight?
I think his name was Bill. Now that you were reminding me of when she's begging to see him.
Yeah.
Like, see Bill.
Fucking Bill.
Bill.
This is Bill and Jerry's bogus journey.
They really went to hell.
So he pulls a curtain and he's like, it's Fish Boy, and he just put a fish tail and basically turned him into a merman.
Yeah, that's a great throwback. That really shows Rob Zombie's other interests, because they have, number one, later in the movie, they're watching the Munsters on the TV. Yeah. Which is great foreshadowing for where we are now, but Rob Zombie's also always been huge Munster fan. Of course, it's the Dragula episode, but he's also a big fan of these, like, Ripley's Believe It or Not, like, these freak show attractions.
Fiji mermaid and all that shit.
He literally turned him into a Fiji mermaid, which is a great idea, and it looks awesome, like, for a practical effect, because that's obviously not Rainn Wilson really sitting. That's a whole mold of his body. Yeah. It looks awesome.
And it does, because it really looks like him sitting there.
I do hope Rainn Wilson got to take that home with him.
Right. So then it shows, God, what's after this?
He's, oh wait, no, because we still got to get Wydell showing up to the damn house.
Yeah, and that's not happening yet.
Yeah, what does happen in between here? Why don't we take a piss break real quick?
Yeah, let's take a piss break, and we will be back. So, figured out where we're at now.
Yeah, so before the Fish Boy, we got to mention there was the great torture sequence to the Commodores.
Yeah.
When they're turning him into the Fish Boy, basically. We don't know what they're doing with him, but they're cutting up his face.
He cut his hand off and, like, start touching his face with his own hand. And
yeah, when that hatchet hits the hand, that actually, that gets a reaction out of me. That's a good scare right there. It's a good effect, too. It looks pretty bad. Bad in a good way. I'm like, oh, fuck.
And I'll say, let me see here. I'm about to do something.
Like, even though it's shot, like, gritty in, like, a, like, snuff film type style, you can still see, like, the tendons on the hand, like, just, it's good gore right there for, like, that split second.
And I like the fact that they used the original version of Brick House. That song actually, if we're going in the timeline of the movie, that song has only been out roughly 2 months. The song originally released in August of '77. So we're at Halloween in the movie. So the song had only been around for about 2 months. Because it's a big pet peeve of mine when you have shows or movies that take place in a certain time period and they play shit that came out after.
Yeah, unless it has like some artistic purpose, like it goes along to what the character's going through. Sometimes it's just really
like on motherfucking Spear Street 1994. the kid is straight up playing a video game and listening to More Human Than Human from White Zombie. And that song would not come out for another year.
So point being that when you see Baby really dancing around, like that's like she's hearing this shit for the first time or like the second time. She's
Yeah,
like, this is
like
shit.
that's a fairly new song in their world. And what annoys me is I love the soundtrack to the movie. There's a lot of special Rob Zombie songs you don't get anywhere, and the score stuff is great. There's a lot of dialogue from the movie in there. Then you get the Buck Owens track, "Who's Gonna Mow Your Grass," that plays when the cops go to Captain Spaulding's place, and you get the Slim Whitman track that is about to be playing pretty soon. But what annoys me on the soundtrack is Brick House is on there, but it's Rob Zombie's cover with Lionel Richie and motherfucking Trina. When Trina comes in there rapping, it just throws the whole vibe of the song off.
It's built like a brick house.
Yeah. It just throws it all off. And even on the soundtrack, like the soundtrack is just flowing. And then when you get to that version of the song, it's like, to me, it just throws the whole vibe of the soundtrack off.
Yeah, to me, it's delightfully awkward because I like that Rob Zombie's going for it. He's trying, you know. It's not a bad cover, you know, up until that point.
Because I think Rob Zombie has always done great cover songs until you get to We're an American Band.
And I think that, yeah.
Whereas We're an American Band completely throws the vibe of Venomous Rat Regeneration Vendor off, where I'm like, damn, that's the only time on a Rob Zombie album I'm skipping a track.
Yeah, because like as an individual song, like it's not even that crazy of a cover. Like it's a good cover, but yeah, for the album that it's on, it's kind of
the cover
place.
is so average. It plays it so safe. It just does the song. But when you listen to other Rob Zombie covers, like the White Zombie cover of "I'm Your Boogeyman," Rob Zombie's cover of Blitzkrieg Bop. He changes them up and does his...
changes Blitzkrieg Bop to the point where, like, some people who I show it to, they're like, I really like it. Other people are like, I really don't. But I admire that. I'm like, he just turned it into a Rob Zombie song.
Yeah, it slows it up because Blitzkrieg Bop is a song I'm already sick of hearing anyway, and people cover it all the times, and they keep it pretty safe as well. But Rob Zombie slowing it up and just changing it like he did, brought a lot of fresh air to the damn song. But,
hey ho, let's go, shoot him in the back now.
And
with the little effects over his voice.
Yeah. Shoot him in the back now.
I've listened to that We're an American Band cover on its own, like when I'm working in the warehouse and stuff like that. And it's fine, but I completely agree with you that in the context of the rest of it, it's kind of like a sore thumb.
Yeah. So where were we? We get that scene of them chopping Bill Dwight up, and
Bill Dwight. That should be the character's name.
Bill Dwight. Wouldn't it be? I think I said this in our original retro for this movie years ago. Wouldn't it be funny if this was the ultimate Jim prank? You know, Jim liked to prank Dwight on The Office. Jim says, "Hey, there's a crazy house, man. That you go see this. Go see this tree, Dwight." But yeah. So what happens next?
We skipped back a little bit just to mention the Commodore scene, but then they turn him into Fish Boy, and you want to see Bill? You want to see Fish Boy? But then after that, we have the Skunk Ape nightmare, which we've already talked about. But then when she wakes up, one of my favorite dumb gags in the movie is she's tied to the bed, Tiny comes down, and he's got a box of Agatha Crispies. Yeah,
Agatha Crispies, man. I love that. And he's got a shirt that says cheap-ass Halloween costume. And what's funny is, it is so gross the way he's eating this cereal out of the dog bowl. It's like he's just slurping the milk out of the spoon and getting the Cheerios just all over the place.
Yet he's still the most innocent of the characters because technically doesn't do anything, really.
Yeah, the worst
Like,
thing he does is helps kidnap everybody out of the car dressed as a scarecrow.
Right, all right. So no, he's not innocent.
Yeah.
But I love how he gives Otis the shrug. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't do
Yes,
anything.
he lets her go, man. She's just like, I'm gonna go home now. I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna go. And Otis is like, where the hell are you going? He throws her in the cage, and he looks at fucking Otis and just, like you said, gives him that shoulder shrug. That's a really funny little moment.
There's a little bit of that supernatural element playing into it again, where it's like he throws her into the cage, and it's not like there's other victims in the cage. These weird ghouls just like start jumping on top of her.
Yeah, which is like, who are these people? What are they? What are they doing in there?
I'm assuming, and I just thought of this now, right? But I'm like, if there really is a supernatural element going on, because weirdly enough, I watched this movie with my mom, which doesn't sound like something you should do, but she walked away with an interesting theory where the supernatural stuff, all the Dr. Satan stuff isn't real. This is like a setup from the family. Because when you look at Dr. Satan, he kind of looks like Otis in a costume anyway.
That or an animatronic. Like, he's got animatronic vibes like a motherfucker. Almost
Yeah,
like you
so
could
this
say...
could easily all be one big, like, jigsaw-esque ruse.
Yeah, because you could even say that, like, that whole underground mine has horror Halloween attraction vibes all over it. Like, maybe that could have been a Halloween attraction that they just put down there. But we'll get to a lot of that theory-wise when we get there, because what happens next...
My point being was, if the supernatural element is real, then they probably put those ghouls in the pit to soak in the mud. You know, those are probably the same guys.
Yeah. Because, yeah, it brings up a lot of questions.
And they keep them in a cage, so they're ravenous. So maybe they're like that's their little feeding pit when they're ready.
And so, after all this, the two cops finally find the car. And they open up the trunk because they open up the trunk and they find one of the cheerleaders' bodies in the trunk with trick and treat carved in her.
Such a disturbing image. Like, I know some people... This is where probably the most artsy the film gets, that you get this montage of the music playing and...
Yeah, because this is where they pick up the girl's dad also.
Oh, right, I'm jumping ahead, my bad.
Yeah, because they pick up the girl's dad and start heading out that way, and then we get a shot of Baby fucking with Jerry, saying like, you know, hey, who I'll let you go if you can say who my favorite actor is or whatever the fuck, and he's just like fucking Marilyn Monroe. And she's like, wrong, Betty Davis, and just starts scalping his ass. And
I love how before that, like, I know that you're tied up and, like, any weapon is threatening, but it seems like he just really has a problem with her cutting his hair.
Yeah.
So don't touch it.
Yeah, she's cutting her hair and shoving it in his mouth.
That's sick. Like, that is some sadistic stuff. Like, it seems silly, and it is kind of funny, but when I think about that, like, I'm like, she's so fucking... she's so crazy.
Yeah.
Like, anything to make you more uncomfortable. It's like salt in the wound.
And so now we have the cops driving up to the house, and they're getting out and they're talking about, you know, how all this shit everywhere, these hoarders, you know, do they ever sell anything? They're ever going to have a yard sale. And so the younger cop, Baby Billy from Righteous Gemstones, him and the father go to the back of the house while George Wydell goes to knock on the door. And this is when we have Otis and Grandpa throwing knives at Jerry, and they're watching the Munsters on TV. And fucking Mama Firefly comes in there. Hey, there's cops at the door. Da 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 da. And he's like, okay, look, you go handle them. Here's this gun. I'm gonna go to the back and I'm gonna see what's going on. and he looks at Grandpa. And I like this shot. He looks at Grandpa and says, "I'm gonna go fucking handle it, cause nobody else will." And Grandpa gives him the finger, and then with that same finger points back to the TV, like, "Motherfucker, I'm watching TV."
That's what I'm doing.
And yes, this is a great ass bit. She opens up the door, and he's being real nice, and she's being standoffish, but you know, and won't let him in the house. And finally, she lets him in the house, and he comes in, and then we cut to Baby Billy and the dad.
It's weird because she actually seems to charm Wydell, because he is trying to get to the point. Like, when he's at the door, he's kind of a little more passive-aggressive, like he has the fake smile on his face, but then she starts showing the pictures, and it looks like he actually did get distracted for a moment.
Yeah. And so this whole sequence, when they start hearing someone screaming in the shed, so the dad and the other cop, the moment they open the door of the shed, it just triggers this whole slow motion bit, this whole great fucking bit. Slim Whitman's playing "I Remember You," and fucking it is just so fucking cool, man, because now you got they're like freaking out, they're fucking throwing up, and she's freaking out because she's seeing her dad. And
the slow-mo and the regular motion is kind of like syncing up, because you got the slow-mo of Walton Goggins yelling into the fucking walkie, and then it cuts back to him, and it's just the Wydell, you know what I mean? So you got a nice editing going on here.
Yeah.
And then it goes back into slow-mo right as he gets shot through the neck.
Yeah, she gets him in the neck, blah, right there. Once old
nice whip. You got a nice little blood splatter across the neck.
Yeah, good. And then motherfucking Otis shows up, and the dad starts to run away and gets shot a few times. Falls in a little puddle.
The home movie footage, and this is a trope that would go on. I don't know.
This is like him seeing his life flash before his eyes.
Pretty much, yeah, but this trope would be used, I know for sure, in Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie. I don't know if, like, the movies after that, Lords of Salem or 31 or any of those, go back to experimenting with that, but it started here, and then he uses it he uses it in both Halloween movies.
Definitely when Michael Myers' mom goes to kill herself.
Yeah, there's that, and then there's, I think at the end of the movie, it's like the last shot is the home footage of Laurie and baby Michael. So that is interesting. It is definitely what you're saying, that in this case, it works. It's the life flashing before his eyes, basically.
And then you get, like, the coolest shot. Huh?
That stood out to me, though, is why I wrote it down, is that I like seeing these little touches that you see that he likes, and he goes on, he's like, I want to do something with that again. I kind of liked what I was doing in House of a Thousand Corpses there.
Yeah. Then you get, like, the coolest shot ever. He makes the fucking cop get on his knees, all the music fades out, and he's got the gun to his head, and they fucking pull away, and Rob fucking holds this shot for a minute, dude, for a long ass time. And you're ready to yell cut, man. Like, cut. All right, cut. But it's so, he draws it out so long, I love it. And then
it's almost like an Andy Kaufman move. Like, you almost think like your TV's broken for a moment.
Yeah, and it's like nothing's moving. And then finally, boom, gunshot. And I love that with the smoke and the bullet flying out the back of his head. Like, that is such a cool-ass fucking damn scene, just an effect. And once that happens, all the sound comes back, the birds start chirping because it disturbed all of them. It's such a great fucking shot.
And much like Tarantino, I mean, it's Rob Zombie, he's a straight-up musician, so it's like he times everything to the music.
Yeah.
So you will definitely see that with the ending of Devil's Rejects. But, like, he writes these scenes with these songs in mind, and then is like, listen, if we're going to pay for it, we're going to use the whole fucking song.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much the whole fucking song that plays out, and then boom, that happens, and Then what's after this? Does it just cut to later that night, and they got Jerry and the two ladies dressed in the rabbit suits? Yeah,
And
'cause
then all tied together, kind of like the Star Wars characters on Endor. They're basically caught in a net. And this is really disturbing, too, when, again, we've seen it in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but just the way that it's your daughter, it's the daughter, and she's looking at her dad's face, but another dude is wearing it. And he even cut off a piece of the chest to wear it over there. Oh,
and
my God.
here's what I was going to say about this. Rob Zombie mentioned in the commentary that the mask that's supposed to be the face of the dad was not that good, so that's why he spliced in shots of the dad, so like people could realize, oh, okay, that's the dad's skin. And it's weird that that mask didn't look all that great when we have that fish boy and it looks exactly like fucking Dwight.
Right.
Like maybe the props department had the day off that day.
We were running out of money.
But he starts walking down there saying more weird shit. I'm the guy that brings the Christmas candy. Who's your daddy? And that's another one.
Well,
they all join in with the "Who's your daddy?"
Yeah, it's so disturbing. He might as well have walked in with, some people call me the space cowboy.
Yeah.
Some call me the gangster of love.
Hell yeah. And that would have worked too, because after Gangster of Love, I could see Baby and her mom go, woo, woo.
Yeah, exactly. They would.
And so he walks up there, he's like, give Dad some sugar, and just licks her face.
Oh my God. Yeah,
So
and he
gross.
did that before too, when he was showing Fish Boy, and she's like, fuck you, you fucking freak. But now she's just like, it disturbs me so much because she's crying that her dad's dead. That's why she says daddy.
Yeah.
It's so disturbing, but you're also kind of giving the killer what they want because he's like, yeah, I am daddy.
Yeah. And we also get a bit too where Rufus hops in the cop car and just goes for a little joyride, a little drinking and driving in the field. And
yeah, there's varying psychopathy amongst the family that I like how it's like they're all complicit and they're all crazy in some way, but like RJ's like the more laid back, like again, he's the lumberjack.
like he's the muscle.
He's the stoic, yeah.
And and you can tell he's a hunter because he's able to shoot that tire out while the car is driving pretty well with his rifle. And like what's cool is like you get these bits of backstory to the character that don't overly explain. Like we mentioned with Baby, maybe there was this whole mom and daughter trying to go to Hollywood thing and it didn't pan out. Same thing with Otis obviously being a hunter. Don't know Grandpa's deal except for maybe he tried to be a stand-up comedian at one point. But still don't know what Otis's deal is.
Otis is just in his own little world.
Yeah. And so now they get him on leashes and start walking him out in the night. I like all these shots too. This is where the movie starts to take a turn and change from crazy family in a house to lots of weird shit. This
is where I disagree with my buddy Mike, where he was like, oh, it feels like a completely different movie, where I'm like, it doesn't feel like a completely different movie. There was something that brought us from point A to point B.
Yeah, like it's not a complete shift. It's just a different vibe. The whole last part of the movie is a different vibe.
I like how Rob Zombie is really good, especially with these first two movies, in revving up the climax, where, again, it feels like a nightmare. Things don't necessarily make sense, but the emotional reaction you're getting for it is, it's pumping up. Like, if you could imagine the sound of a heartbeat, it's like, at this point, it's starting to fucking... as they're being led out to this fucking thing. And this climax, the whole Run Rabbit climax, gets paralleled in Devil's Rejects, where the shoe gets on the other foot.
Yeah. And so we get the one girl runs off And this is a bit of some bad acting, where she's like, "Let me go get her," and he's like, "All right, go get her." I don't know. That's just such an odd line read. I would.
It's just kind of brother and sister bantering. I think that's on Sherry's delivery. That's what that's supposed to be, is the whiny younger sister. Well, I want to do it.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, okay. And he's the mean older brother.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Go get her. It's just a weird. Maybe
it doesn't have that, because Otis isn't Chop Top, right? So you can imagine Chop Top being all like giddy. Oh yeah, go get her. He's just like, fuck it, yeah, go get her.
Yeah, dog will hunt.
Dog will hunt.
Yeah, and so yeah, she's running through this little graveyard, and you get this crazy little rabbit in the cabbage patch. This weird little nursery rhyme thing.
Come hop on my tail, and I'll take you to my rabbit hutch.
Yeah. And she, the lady trips and falls, obviously, and then baby gets on top of her and just starts stabbing.
Yup.
And then licks the blood on the knife.
Yeah.
And then they throw the other lady and Jerry into a coffin. And he's like, yeah, no hanky-panky. Rufus, put the lid on.
Did he already... No, I don't think this is it yet, but did he get into, like, his black metal makeup yet? Like, basically trying out for Ghost?
Yeah, not yet. That's not until they go to light the funeral pyre.
Yes, okay, yeah. So they get dunked under. This is where they get dipped into this muddy, murky water, and those guys who I assume were the guys in the cage, they just start tearing apart the coffin, which is a sick visual.
Yeah, there's some cool ass shit going on here, because also they lower in this tape player with this Aleister Crowley shit.
So that probably like summons them from underneath the water or whatever.
Yeah, bury me in a nameless grave.
Stop. They retract, their heads go back down.
Yeah, it's like they don't do nothing. They just kind of bust the coffin open, and I think they take Jerry away. But she gets away, and you start hearing Jerry yelling, like, help me, God. And she's going around through this mine. And this is why I'm thinking, could this be like some fucked up Halloween attraction? Nobody down there is fucking with her. Because the ghoul dudes in the pool don't really do shit. And then she bumps into these other creepy guys, and all they do is rip the bunny suit off and walk away. And then she gets into Dr. Satan's waiting room, which is really cool. These weird experimented on motherfuckers just sitting around. It almost looks like the waiting room to the other side on Beetlejuice.
Yeah. And they're digging into Jerry's head. Which
she sees Dr. Satan there, just fucking got Jerry's brain exposed and shit. And
Dr. Satan! Dr. Satan!
Yeah, he got his wish. He got to meet Dr. Satan.
First hand, he got to meet Dr. Satan.
Yeah.
Got an appointment with him.
But yeah, he's got such a weird fucking animatronic-y vibe to him. I don't know.
Yeah, he's kind of like hung up by these weird metal, like...
arm things.
Whatever you call them. Like, they're hanging him up like a marionette. And I never realized, because I was watching it with the subtitles on this time around, that he is saying stuff. I don't know what he's saying, because the subtitles just translated as, like, speaking in foreign language.
Yeah.
But I want to know what he's saying to the girl then, because he stares right at her and starts going, like, I'm just like, bro, he's probably explaining all this shit.
And so Earl busts in, my Bloody Valentine looking guy, and starts chasing her around with an axe.
Yeah, giant. He's kind of like if you took the guy from My Bloody Valentine and gave him like the Super Shredder ooze from Ninja 2, because he literally like dies the same way if he is dead. Like he just kind of kills himself in a way by tearing the house down.
Yeah,
but I think that through these experiments of Dr. Satan, he takes off the fucking thing, and like he's just kind of got like an asshole mouth.
Yeah, he's got an asshole mouth, and this nasty green push shit starts seeping out of it.
He's kind of like a Cenobite.
Yeah, But yeah, he swings at her and knocks over a damn pillar, and just a bunch of rocks and shit fall on him. It kind of lame, kind of dumb. But yeah, so we get Otis and everybody walking to the little funeral pyre and set it on, and yeah, he's got his black metal makeup on.
And it does look sick.
Yeah, it looks fucking good.
Get an action figure of that particular Otis if it exists.
Yeah, hell yeah. What sucks is there's all kinds of action figures to Rob Zombie's movies, but they are stupid fucking expensive.
Yeah, because they're either rare or, again, they're just, just rare. They've been around too long and they're not in reprint.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of those McFarlane toys are getting pretty pricey. There's one of the Thing that's a really rare one. It's the guy, it's Norris, when his chest opens up and that big thing comes out of him. They had a whole action figure of that Thing creature in really good detail, like more detail than I even noticed in the movie. And I came across it once at a store, but I think somebody already, like, had it basically, like, bought. I don't know how it worked. But damn, like, if I could catch that in person again, it's worth the money.
Yeah, I loved McFarlane toys growing up, and those original first couple runs of the movie Maniacs, you know, nowadays you can get incredibly cool detailed horror movie action figures all day from, like, the NECA.
NECA has really been going strong with that. Like, they keep producing more and more horror related figures.
And back in the day when Todd McFarlane was doing the movie Maniacs, those were the only detailed horror action figures you could get. And I wish they were easier to get a hold of, but a lot of those run fucking expensive. But we were able to find just about the entire set of his the Todd McFarlane's X-Files action figures. Found just about the entire set at a pawn shop, man, and we fucking bought them all.
That's a great find.
Yeah.
Especially, look at that, and, like, dude, the Jim Morrison figure is really, because he did the music ones too.
The Ozzy Osbourne, the Metallica ones. He's even got a Rob Zombie action figure. I'll see pop up on eBay every once in a while.
There's really only two bad McFarlane movie Maniacs figures, in my opinion, and it's the Terminator one, because they technically didn't have the rights to Schwarzenegger's face, so it's like a really awkward, like, they tried to do the thing where, his face is peeling away, but what makes that cool is when you have half the face of Arnold and that eye, but it's like a majority of the face is eaten away, so it just looks really weird.
And then what's the other one?
The Blair Witch one is kind of weird, but that's also because, you know, it's an interesting interpretation of, like, here's what I think the Blair Witch looks like. It's just not what I personally would.
Yeah, I'd rather not know what the Blair Witch looks like. Plus, it also looks closer to that Darkness Falls thing.
Exactly. It looks like the thing that they used in the Blair Witch reboot, basically. I wonder if that figure played into how they went about showing the witch.
Yeah. But then when Movie Maniacs started doing non-horror shit, like you said, with the Terminator and stuff, especially Terminator 2, it was kind of like, all right.
Exactly. A little side tangent there, but this is the show where grown men rant about toys.
Yeah.
It's in the intro.
Hell, I think talking about the X-Files action figures and Movie Maniacs is what inspired this podcast to begin with.
Absolutely it was. I think that was the first chat that we had, was just McFarlane sets, because I was just completing the my Metallica one at the time.
Badass. So, all that happens, and it's the next day. It's now November 1st.
The one time we see, like, there's very few moments in this movie where we see actual sunlight. When the cops come to visit, when they're talking to Spaulding, usually with the cops and the dad. But, like, for some reason, like, after being in that pit of despair, you really feel like you do get lulled into a sense of comfort for a second. Like, oh, she might have actually gotten out.
Yeah, you see the sunset or the sunrise in the desert, and everything's feeling a little more calm. And she wakes up, and gets a little further on out there. You see the dead body of Earl lying there. And I guess she climbs her way out, man, because she comes out, she busts through the ground and starts wandering around on the road. And we get another Captain Spaulding bit. He's driving up the road and pulls over and gets her in the car. And he's like, holy shit, people been looking for you.
Should have been Angela Baker in the car with the fucking cowboy hat on. Howdy, partner.
Right. And then he's like, yeah, we're going to take you right on to a hospital. Da, 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 da. And then I love this. Boom, Otis pops back up with a little knife. But I like how they do a close-up to his face, and he looks at Spaulding, then looks at the girl, then he looks at Spaulding, then he looks at the girl, and then boom, the end. So that's very much a Chainsaw Massacre thing. Like, didn't in the first one they pick up the girl and then just drive her ass back?
Yeah, she gets away and it ends on him fucking dancing with the chainsaw. Like, he looks at Spaulding, looks at her, and then knocks her out. So you almost for a second still believe that Spaulding could be innocent, because you could argue, like, he's trying to pick which one to kill. But he's actually just giving Spaulding, like, the fact that he's in the backseat of the car at all is like, nah, dude, like, we're in on this.
And then the whole
so he's kind of giving him an affirmative nod.
And then the whole Spaulding saying people are looking for you, he could just be talking about the Firefly family in general, trying to find her ass.
No, literally, because he's like, oh yeah, I'll take you to the doctor.
Yeah. And boom, takes her to the fucking doctor. Takes her to damn Dr. Satan.
Which is a great ending. Just, no! The one corny thing, but again, like, Rob Zombie's self-aware about it, so I could live with it, is he goes, the end, and then there's, like, the Undertaker, dong, and it's like, question mark?
Yeah.
Because it really isn't. We're going to get more. But I think even at the time, Rob Zombie was like, listen, this was, like, hell and a half to make. I don't even know if I'll make a sequel, so...
I didn't know that Rob Zombie was going to even continue a film career. You know, I thought this might have been a one-and-done kind of situation. Because when Devil's Rejects came out, I didn't even know about that movie until I read the review for it the weekend it opened in one of our local arts magazines here in town.
Interesting.
Because I had never seen a trailer, never heard a single thing about that movie until I saw the review for it. And I was like, damn, Rob Zombie did another movie? And even
it probably wasn't getting, like, TV spots or anything like that. You'd have to hear it through, like, the paper or, like, early internet hype.
Yeah, because we didn't, at the time, me and my wife had just moved in together. We didn't have internet, you know, and we had cable, but we didn't really watch TV all that much because I was working third shift at Walmart, and so she'd be gone during the day at her job, and I'd be sleeping.
And you would just find out about these movies through the paper. And Devil's Rejects definitely made more of a splash, I think, than House of a Thousand Corpses. House of a Thousand Corpses is more of, like, the sleeper hit that word of mouth through video definitely got it to where it is now today, where it's arguably celebrated more than Devil's Rejects, just because Devil's Rejects was, like, toted 5 stars, like, the moment it came out. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Roger Ebert was giving it 2 thumbs up, the Devil's Rejects. So that is pretty interesting. What the fuck was I just thinking of when it came to Devil's Rejects? I hate when it gets later into the podcast and then, like, you're like, I have so many points, and then they just blend in together. It's where the notes come in handy.
Yeah, but overall, man, this movie, straight up, I give it a 10. Love the shit out of every minute of it. It's a very quotable movie. It's a very memorable movie. It's
a very creatively rewarding movie. Like, it's one of those movies that, not just watching it, but hearing the story behind it, it makes you want to make a movie yourself, even though the making of it was very troubled. That was the point I was going to make, was that this was shot in 99, and it took them till 2003 for it to actually see release.
Yeah, because Universal was like, this shit has an NC-17. We're not releasing it. They put it on the shelf. and Rob Zombie had to buy the rights back and sell them to Lionsgate.
And this was before Saw, so going back into what we've been talking about this whole podcast is like this was kind of Lionsgate making their first bet. Like they made big money with American Psycho. That was the thing that put Lionsgate on the map, which is why they immediately shout out that sequel with Mila Kunis, because like at the time that was a hit. Like that's the only thing we have making us money, but they'll take a risk on House of a Thousand Corpses because like horror seems to be doing well for us. And then once they had Saw, like they completely like, you know, that's where the logo changed to completely accommodate it.
Yeah, and so this movie, man, the time it came out, this movie did a lot and paved the way for what horror in the mainstream could be. Because like we said, it was pretty sterile for a couple years and very polished. And for a couple years after this, like even the first Saw isn't even that crazy on the gore and stuff. Like it's gory, but it's still pretty damn reserved compared to the later Saw sequels.
Yeah, they just put a lot of grime over the lens. That's where you see the difference being made. Is like, especially like movies like House of a Thousand Corpses and Bubba Hotep. Like why they're so important is that they came out in 2002, 2003, but they allowed their movies to look dirty again. Like they just had this film grit where I feel like horror movies should, not just for like an artistic decision, but also because you're watching a movie that's supposed to be like scaring you in some way. And I like that the grit gives it that you're watching something you're not supposed to be watching kind of feel.
And so yeah, I give this movie a straight up 10. Obviously, I like the bad characters the most. They're the most memorable ones. Because like I said before, I don't care what happens to the characters we're supposed to root for. I just want to see some fucked up shit. And this movie...
And that's funny too. When people complain about Rob Zombie's characters, they mainly talk about the lineup, basically, like the body count, where it's like, well, no, he definitely does have care and consideration for his characters. It's like just the ones that he cares about, that he chooses to care about, which happen to be the villains.
Yeah, and people complain about Sherry Moon being in all his movies. I think she does a good job for this type of character. And in fact, what I do like about him putting her in all his movies is you get to see her grow as an actor. Because by the time you get to Lords of Salem, like she's like really fucking selling it. It's like this lady can actually fucking act, y'all. Especially in Halloween as Michael Myers' mom. At least in the first one. You know, it's like, y'all say she's a bad actor. Like, have y'all seen her performance in these movies?
Yeah, that's her just playing a real woman, not playing it up. Because then also in El Super Bisto, you have her doing more of a baby voice, because that's a literal cartoon.
Yeah.
But I think something that people also disregard is, like, this is literally how, in real life, their relationship developed through art. Like, they met each other through, she was an actress, she was in his music videos, like, they liked each other, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's in many ways, part of their love language. You may find it annoying. Some people find it exploitative, like they kind of try to paint Rob Zombie like a cuck, like, yeah, fucking look at how hot my wife is. Where it's sometimes, sure, I mean, there are moments like that, but I don't think that's the whole sell of it. I think they genuinely enjoy making these movies together. She seems to be like his biggest supporter, which is very cute. And what's it called? If you have an actress literally living with you, it also just helps budgetary-wise as well.
Yeah.
Not into a business thing, but it's like you already have the actor. I'm like, it makes things even easier.
Yeah.
And she's game to do this. Like, you know what I mean? She already knows Rob, so it's like she knows what he wants.
Yeah, exactly. She can give him the performance that he wants and all that. So and then it's just the way this movie looks.
Not what you want. Like, again, it makes sense in my mind as a creative couple. Like, this is kind of cool. You know what I mean? They really are kind of like a Joker and Harley Quinn of Hollywood.
Yeah. And then I think the way the movie looks is really cool. I like the crazy psychedelic film grain and colors on the shit. And I like the random ass cuts to whatever the fuck, like the skunk ape and the crazy religious guy. And, it's just one cool ass fucking movie all the way.
you're not going to find another movie like it, so it's worth the watch in that regard.
Yeah.
You know,
because you
especially
could.
as movies grow more and more sterile. I try not to be cynical about the way modern movies are and stuff like that, but the writing's kind of on the wall where it's like, unless you're in like the indie film circuit and stuff like that, like going to the film festival, you're not going to see a movie like this on a wide release.
Exactly.
So
like for this to be something in the
success.
mainstream, for this to be released in the mainstream like it was, and you would expect this movie to be a direct-to-video release when it came out. But the fact that it hit the theaters and was a decent hit on its own, it showed that people wanted something different.
Exactly. So it's very interesting, kind of like what I was talking about in my written review of Darkman, is for all it's worth. Like, if the movie itself doesn't get you, it's an interesting window into this time in film history.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if I would give it a 10 out of 10. I've been trying to refrain from number ratings just because they could always change, but I do look at this film very highly, especially from where I used to view Rob Zombie movies. It's like, this is a good achievement, and it only, in terms of Devil's Rejects, gets better from here.
Which is the damn truth. So, for Devil's
Rejects,
huh?
That is the first of our Rob Zombie retrospective, our long-awaited.
Yeah. And I can't wait to watch the rest.
Yes, sir. So these are our spooky time Graveyard Smash reviews, but there are so many Rob Zombie movies that will also catch you in November with these.
Yeah, we're going to try to not let this retrospective last about 2 years like we did with Kevin Smith.
We're not going to let COVID get in the way of that.
But let us know what you think about this movie.
Yes. If you haven't commented already, we got the discussion put up. Even post-podcast, feel free to comment on our posts about it. We got pictures of Captain Spaulding all over our Facebook pages, on the Basement Facebook page, Dark Discussions podcast. Anywhere where you can find me or Travis, odds are you'll see our House of a Thousand Corpses post. And we'd love to hear more of what you guys have to say.
Yeah.
Because
and even too, we'll read it on the next one.
Look at what Mike Benbow did. Send us your reviews.
Yeah. Just tell us anything you want.
Spark that conversation.
But we will see y'all on the next episode with Devil's Rejects.
Later.
Later.